Hey guys, welcome back to our channel Glitched Velocity. I'm your host Wazahat, and today in this video, I'm gonna demonstrate uses of an updated version of my 2D camera controller for CopperCube 3D game engine. As always, you can download the extension from my website www.𝙎𝙪𝙙𝙘𝙪. So go ahead and download this extension 2D camera controller version 1.2 from my website. For this video reference, I have already created and prepared a test project which you can see on my desktop named as demo test.ccb. So I'm going to open it. And let me just maximize it. As you can see, I have already prepared a 2D level here. And you can see some scene nodes in the Scene Graph Explorer. Most of them are plane meshes and cube meshes. These cube meshes are fake collision platform, and these plane meshes are world dummy and player. And then we have our camera node here, which has the main topic or the main discussion of this video. So we have applied 2D camera controller to our camera node here. So all you have to do is you have to create a simple camera by going into create a new camera tab here. So once you have created a simple camera, then all you have to do is you have to attach the 2D camera controller behavior to it. So go ahead and add a 2D camera controller to your simple camera. As you can see, we have a bunch of different parameters here or properties here for our 2D camera in the behavior. First one is our player, and you can see I am using a player here for my game. Let me just quickly switch to left view so that we don't have to fiddle with the viewport. And you will also notice that I am creating this game, or I have already prepared this scene on ZY plane, or you can say as Z forward axis. So if you see this Z axis and it is pointing towards the right. So if your Z-axis is pointing towards the right of your game, then you are creating a game on Z forward axis. If your X-axis is pointing towards the right of your screen or right of your game, then you are creating or developing your game on the X forward axis. So if I change this plane mesh here, which is our world dummy rotation to 90, from 90 to 0 on the Y-axis, then if I switch to front view, then you will notice that now our X-axis is pointing towards the left. It is still on the XY plane, but we have X backward. We need X to the forward direction. So we need to make sure that we are developing our game on X forward direction. So we have to make this X-axis pointing towards the right of our screen. So I have to go to view, then change viewport and switch to back. So now you can see my game is going to be developed on X forward axis because X-axis is now pointing towards the right of the screen. So why I'm telling you all this? Because in our behavior, we have to specify X forward or Z forward. So if you are developing your game on the Z forward axis, then you have to select Z forward. So if you are developing your game on the X forward axis, then you have to select X forward. It doesn't matter if you want to use, you can use X backward or Z backward, but it will be recommended to use Z forward and X forward axis whenever you develop your 2D games. So let me just switch back to left view and then change the rotation of our plane mesh back again to 90 on the Y-axis. And you will notice that I'm also using a player here with a sprite sheet as a texture applied, because I am also using a sprite sheet animation extension of mine on this player mesh. You can also purchase this extension from 𝙎𝙪𝙧𝙘𝙪𝙗 for $8. So go ahead to 𝙎𝙪𝙧𝙘𝙪𝙗 and search for 2D sprite sheet animation CopperCube extension version 1.2. You can watch the uses video to get the idea how this works or how this will look by watching this uses instruction video before purchasing the extension. So now let's get back to our topic or our behavior. So select our camera here, and in our 2D platformer and RTS camera controller type behavior, first option is our player. If we are using platformer type camera where the camera follows the player, then we need to specify player here. So we have to select our player here so that the camera will automatically chase or follow the player. Then we have to specify the axis on which our game is developed. So if we are using Z forward, then we have to select Z forward. If we are developing game on XY plane and using X forward, then we have to use X forward here. Then we can specify the camera smoothing speed or camera smoothing value, which is by default 0.9. You can change it to something like 0.1, so the smoothing will be lowest, and if you change it to something like 0.99, then the smoothing will be highest. Let me just change it back to 0.9. Then we have some options like stop camera left at, stop camera right at, stop camera up at, stop camera down at. And what these behaviors or these extensions, or you can say behavior properties, will do is, suppose your player has reached this point here, or you can say we don't know exactly what is the position here. So I'm gonna create a cube mesh here, and let's just say move it here, and now we will look at its Z position because we are using Z forward. So we need to check Z position here, which is 1019 for this cube mesh. And now we can delete it and we can specify this in our camera controller as a stop camera right at 1000, and I think it was 19. So 1019. And now whenever our player reaches or player crosses this 1019 position, the camera will not follow it on the right side or right axis or towards here. So if our player goes like here, then the camera will not follow or stop following it. And it will be much better when I will show you it doing live in the testing of the game. So other parameters are also similar, so you don't have to worry about them. They will do the same thing, except they will stop the camera at left or up or down position. So you can specify whatever position you want to your camera to stop chasing the player. You can specify it here, like you want to stop the camera moving left at 1000 or 100 or whatever value, you can put it here. Then same goes for right, the same goes for up, same goes for down values. Then we have an option like RTS Style Camera. So if you enable this option, then your camera will stop following the player. Instead, it will move whenever you move your mouse cursor towards these boundaries of this screen. So if you move your mouse cursor towards the right boundary or right of your screen, then the camera will move towards right. So if you move towards left, then it will move to the left of the screen. If you move up, then it will move up of the screen. And if you move down, then it will go down to the screen. If you go diagonal, then it will go diagonal to the screen. So you can enable or disable it. Then we have some RTS style camera properties like RTS distance from boundary. And it is the distance, like suppose you have 50 here, then you don't need to move the cursor to the extreme left or extreme to the screen boundaries. What you can do is you can limit the boundaries by providing a value here like 50. Then all you have to do is you have to move your cursor like here and it will start moving to the left. If you move your cursor like here, and it will start moving to the right of the screen. And then we have some other controls like Rts Camera Speed. So you can specify how fast or how slow the camera will move towards the left, right, up and down whenever you move your cursor towards the boundary or towards the edge of the screen. Then we have enable zoom scroll. So suppose if you want to enable zooming of your camera and zooming out of your camera, then you can simply select or check this option, it will allow you to zoom in and zoom out in your 2D game. So then we have some properties here like zoom scroll distance. You can increase or decrease it to make your zooming and zooming out speed much faster or slower. Then we have max zoom out distance. Suppose you don't want, or you want to limit the zoom out distance. So if you don't want your camera to zoom out whenever it reaches to the 524 values, zoom out value. And then we have maximum zoom in distance, which is 50, or you can change it to something like 100 or more value. And the minimum value, which is limited for maximum zoom in, is 25, so that it won't go beyond the player or it won't go beyond the scene. So let me just quickly show you how this works by testing the application. So we have, let me just change it back to something like 1000. And now if I test the application by pressing Ctrl F10, then you can see we have our scene here, and we can't move by moving our cursor to the edges of the screen or to the boundaries of the game. But when I press the cursor keys like left arrow key or right arrow key, then you will notice that my player is now moving left and right on the screen, and the camera is automatically following the player. And you will also notice that there is some smoothing on the camera. So whenever the player moves, the camera will follow it, but with an ease, or you can say smooth movement. So if I change it to something like 0.1, then you will not be able to see any smoothing for the camera movement. So if I move my player, then you will notice that the movement is stiff or stick to the player. There is no smooth movement for the camera. So if I move and release it, it will stop immediately. And now just to show it more better, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to 0.99 so that you will see the easing of the camera. If I move like this, then you will notice the camera is slowly smoothing out or smoothing in based on the player position. So you can put camera smoothing value according to your needs. I prefer it to put it at 0.9 always, because it looks more natural. Like this and like this. And if I press spacebar, because I have an script I have executed a JavaScript for moving the player upward and downward. Whenever I press space, then it will apply a physics velocity on the y-axis of the player, and whenever I release it, due to gravity, it falls back down, and the camera follows it up and down. And now let me just show you the stop camera. So the camera is, you can see the player is moving to the extreme right, but camera is not following him. But when the player starts moving to the left again, the camera starts following him. So you can limit the camera movement. So now you can see it is not moving to the left of the screen. So what player has gone way far to the left, but our camera has been stuck to the level. So you can use it something like this, and now our player is moving to the right and our camera is also moving to the right of the screen. So you can increase or decrease it. So for example, let me just make it to something like 100 and 100 and 100 and 100. So if I test it, then it will stop the camera movement at 100. So now the player is moving to the right, but the camera is stuck to the center of the screen or center of the scene. So if I move it like this here, then you will see it starts following the scene after player starts moving from this position here. So after player starts moving from this position here, and the camera starts moving or following the player on this particular direction. So you can see if I move it from here, the camera starts chasing it on the left, and then it stops chasing it when the player moves to the left at 100 position, and the camera stops chasing the player on the up direction once it reaches to the 100 position, and it also stops chasing the player after reaching the 100 direction or 100 position point on the down direction. So you can specify positions like where you want your camera to stop following or stop chasing the player. For example, here I don't know what position it is, here on this point and here on this point. So you can use these like by creating a cube mesh and positioning it like here on the y-axis and check its y position. Its y position is minus 301, so you can put 301 in here, like stop camera down at 301, and then you can delete this cube mesh. And if I test the application, then it will stop following the camera after reaching this 301 point here, 301 point here. So it will stop chasing the player after reaching this 301 point here. So this is how this stop camera left, up and down works. And then we have RTS Style Camera. So if I enable it and test the application now, then you will notice that if I move to the right or to the left, the camera doesn't move at all. If I move it up or down, it doesn't move at all. But if I move my mouse cursor to the right of the screen, then you will notice that it moved to the right. If I move it to left of the screen, then it moved to the left. And if I move it up, then it moved to the upward direction. If I move it down, then it moves to the downward direction. And as we have limited these stop camera left, right, up and down to 100, we can't go further towards those values or toward those positions. So in order to move further, we have to increase these values like 1000, 1000, and let's just say 1000 for this as well. And now if I test the application, I can move by pointing like this and then like this. So you can move like this and like this in the scene, like an RTS style camera. So this type of camera mode is used in real-time strategy game. So then we have this option, Rts distance from boundary. Right now it is 50, so that you don't have to go to the extent of the game boundary or the window, game window. So let's just say 0 for this RTS from boundary, or let's just say 1. And if I test the application, then I have to move my mouse cursor to the extreme of this screen, game window screen edge. Then if I move here like this and then like this, and then I have to move it like this in order to move into my scene. Or I can make it to like something 500, so that if I test the application now, I don't have to move my mouse cursor to the extreme left, right, up or down of the screen. So all I have to do is like this and like this. It will move like this. It will move like this. It will move. So it doesn't have to be the extreme left or extreme right corner of the game screen or the game window. Then we can specify the Rts camera speed. You can change it to something like 1, so that it will move slowly or slower whenever you want to move it like this. So it is now moving slowly to the right of the screen. If I move it like this, so it will move slowly to the left of the screen and then up to the and down. Then we can increase it to something like 10 and test the application. So it moves really fast like this, like this. And then we have this option, enable zoom scroll, and I have already checked it. And what it will do is, let me just switch back to our player chasing or player following mode by turning off the Rts style camera. And now if I move, the camera follows the player. And if I use my mouse scroll wheel, if I move my mouse scroll wheel upside, then it will zoom in. And if I move it down, then it will zoom out. And as you can see, I can't go beyond this point. I can't zoom in beyond this point because I have set a limit of 50 on my maximum zooming distance. And if I zoom out, then you will notice I will not be able to zoom out after this position because I have set a limit of zooming out distance as 524, I think. Yeah, 524 as zoom out distance, and zoom in distance is 50. And we have zoom scroll distance, which decides the speed of scrolling. If I scroll my mouse cursor or middle mouse button, then how fast or how slow or how many steps it will take to zoom in or zoom out. So if I change it to something like 100, then the zoom in zoom out speed will be increased like this. So I can put it something like 524. So the zooming speed is much faster, or you can say 2000. So it will move like this and like this. Or I don't know why it's not working. It should increase the speed of scrolling. But if it is not working, then it is probably a bug in the code. I will fix it. So we can put something like 50 again here. And let me just quickly check Rts style camera. So if it works with the Rts style camera. I don't think it is working with that as well. So let me just change it back to 5000. Oh, sorry, that's not working because we already have this unnamed application running. We haven't quit that application. So let me just change it to something like 500, and let's just test the application now. So it should probably, it changed the zoom in, zoom out speed. So if I test the application without Rts camera, then you can see how fast and the zoom in, zoom out speed is now. So if you put something like 100 here, then it will be much slower than this previous test. So if I zoom in like this, it is now slower. And if I put something like 1000, then it will be very much faster. So if I zoom in like this, zoom out like this, it is way much faster than the previous test. Like this. Whoa. And we can put maximum zoom out distance to something like 10,000, and let's just check how far we can go. So like this. And we have zoom scroll distance, and then we have maximum zoom out distance as 1000. So it is now zooming out to the 1000. And then if I change it to 10,000, let's see what will happen. I don't think it will zoom out to the 10,000. Oh, it is zooming out to the 10,000. Let's see what is the maximum limit of zooming out by going like this. Wow, it does work for 1 lakh. I don't know, you can increase or decrease the zoom distance, zoom out distance, or whatever you want. So I think you might already know how this works or how all these things are working. So you don't have to do any single coding or any single programming. All you have to do is enable or disable some properties and put some values like zoom scroll distance, maximum zoom out distance, maximum zoom in distance. So let's just say we want zoom distance to be 200, maximum zoom distance to be 200. And if I zoom in, then you will see I can't zoom in beyond this point. So while previously when I have this 50, I can zoom to a bit more extent. So like this, the player is much more zoomed in. And if I put 200 here, then I will not be able to zoom in further beyond this point. So the player will look like this. And the game is like this. You can easily distinguish the camera smoothing and the player movement and all those stuff. So this is how this behavior works, or this is how you can set up this 2D platformer and RTS camera controller for your CopperCube games without writing a single line of code. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we have some modified behavior attached to this player as well. So if you see this simple 2D jump and run player, which is by default developed or written such as you will not be able to use it on Z forward axis. So I have modified it in the source code here. So what I had changed here is, instead of using pause Z here, I have changed it to pause X. So changing pause X here, pause X here, pause X here, and reverting this rotation on minus 180 on this forward key down instead of back key down here. So you need to change your 2D jump and run behavior if you are using Z forward axis for your platformer games. So keep that in mind. And I am going to create a more sophisticated or more advanced 2D controller, but you have to wait for it. I think that's all for today's video. I hope you liked the video and the extension very much. It will be really helpful to you guys. And if you like the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you are new to the channel, and comment your views in the comment box down below. You can find the link for the extension and for the sprite sheet extension as well in the description down below, and some useless or useful stuff in the description down below. You can join to the Discord server, purchase CopperCube Pro or Studio Edition with our affiliated links. It will support me. Thanks a lot. Have a good night. Bye bye. Peace out.